Boston College's offense and defense look good enough to surprise people and exceed expectations. We'll explain why.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you want insight, news, and analysis from someone who knows the team inside and out, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a daily Boston College podcast available free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On today's show, we're joined by Mike Sidley, writer of Eagle Insider, who's going to tell us his thoughts on the upcoming season. Is he going to surprise you? He may. He's going to talk about an offensive player I've mentioned, but I think you need to hear more about, and a surprise on defense, a player that could be stepping up big time in 2025. And it's camp time. He's been there too. I want to hear his takeaways from camp. Are we looking for a good season, or are we in for a disappointment? And to bring us in, Mike Sidley of Eagle Insider. Mike, how's it going?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right, so the two of us, we've been kind of tag teaming, covering BC football camp, and people have heard my take on things, and I really wanted to hear a different perspective. You've been there too. You were just there this weekend. You saw the scrimmage. Tell me about the scrimmage first of all. How was it? Bill said before that practice, his goal was it would be competitive, but his goal was to not have anyone get injured.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, it was hot out there, man. I mean, me and a few other media members started out, by the field and then sort of trickled our way to the back. And I tried to tough it out, but it didn't last long. And like you said, I think Coach O'Brien did want to have kind of a difficult practice because on Tuesday he called out the team and said that he really didn't like their competitive effort. Like you said, I think they started out flying around right away. When I asked Bill about the effort after, he said he thought they competed a lot harder this time around, and he used the term competitive stamina to describe it, meaning that he thought that they put forth a great effort for the entire duration of practice, and I would have to agree about that. So, one thing about these scrimmages that fans have to remember is that while these practices are definitely the closest to simulating a real game situation, they're in Alumni Stadium, there's a different juice that comes with that, they're in full pads, it's still just practice. And there's a few big hits in there, but it definitely wasn't full throttle. I'd say at the most like 67% full effort. And to refer to another comment that Bill made, he kind of talked about finding the line between making sure everybody's prepped for that Fordham game while also ensuring that everyone is healthy. And, you can imagine that with his 30 plus years of experience, it's really allowed him to find a consistent point of where that line is. Cause there's a few inactives for this scrimmage, guys like Turbo Richard. Bill said he's dealing with a minor cut on his hand. I heard you talk about that a little bit. Reed Harris was out dealing with an ankle injury. Jude Barry's missed a few of these practices. So the point is, there is merit in taking the foot off the gas a little bit, with the Fordham game on the horizon. And I just want all fans to kind of take that as they will when I sort of describe what happened in the scrimmage. But it was apparent that Bill was taking the time not only to simulate a game as best as he could, but to act out a lot of situational moments. They were doing a lot of red zone work, 2-minute drill, 20 seconds on the clock, 10 seconds on the clock, and the red zone, no timeouts. So it was very apparent that this was not only just a game simulation, but to work on a lot of specific stuff. So first off, it was great to see Dylan Lonergan taking snaps in Alumni for the first time since being named the starting quarterback. Obviously, he was out there with the top guys first, and he had some really great drives, some okay drives, but I think the intangibles are just so apparent watching him out there, in a live effort, whether it's his release time, his ability to scramble, roll out of the pocket, and he's still looking downfield for the open man as he's rolling out of the pocket. He's proved that he's able to throw on the run, scrambling from either side. And when he's pressured, he's not afraid to throw the ball away. He's not somebody like Tommy Castellanos that's going to dance behind the line of scrimmage and try to pull something out of thin air. He's thriving in this pro-style offense, I think, that Bill O'Brien expects from his quarterback. And Lonergan he gets it. He'll run when he needs to. It's usually after he goes through all of his progressions. You know, I saw a few plays where he was rolling out, he scanned the field, and then he decided to run for these nice little 4 or 5 yard gains. And those yards are huge, especially when the play is completely dead and you're trying to make what you can out of it. And as far as throwing, you know, at first he was hitting his short little checkdowns to the running back, a slant here and there, maybe a little hitch route. But as the practice progressed, I feel like he started opening it up a little bit. He had a nice completion to Jaden Skeet on a deep out that started to make him more comfortable pushing down the field from what I saw. He had a play where he stepped up out of the pocket, came out of pressure, moved around, and he fired a ball to Lewis Bond in the middle of the field. So that pocket awareness, you could see the intangibles in real time, and that was cool. And, you know, you started to see him really find his rhythm. And despite one play that really stood out to me, was a play in the red zone where he had tight end Kalen Chudzinski on the outside, who was covered by Favor Bate, ironically, a D lineman. So he throws this fade ball up only where Kalen can catch it like a perfect ball. And Favor made a really nice play, kind of turned around, swatted out the last second. But you just see the touch when this guy throws deep. You see the intangibles. You see he's not rushing, and I think that's huge.
Yeah, he's got the mentality to do that kind of stuff, right? Like he's calm and collected. He doesn't look like he gets flustered very much. And that leads to those types of passes. I mentioned on a show earlier this week, there was a play last week at practice where he zipped one in, and Bam Crouch was right on that. But he hit it in just the spot where only, I think it was Jeremiah Franklin could catch it. I'm telling you, not a knock on Grayson James, he would have missed that pass. Tommy Castellanos, that would have probably went behind Pam Crouch. You know, and I think that's the big difference in kind of what you're saying there. Now tell me a little bit about, you know, maybe what some of the other things you saw, maybe on defense too.
Yeah, sure. So I just kind of wanted to get into, like you were talking about, Grayson James a little bit as well, because early on to me, he kind of was winning that. It's not a battle anymore, but he was out there doing the better of the two quarterbacks at first. He threw a deep ball to Nedrick Bolden in the middle of the field for like a 30-yard gain. He got a touchdown on his first drive, but you see these little things that kind of remind you of the dichotomy of Grayson James, right? Because with the good comes the bad. And things like, you know, there was a play when they were doing red zone situations where he rolled right, had a wide open Mekhi Dodds streaking to the right side. So right in front of his face, he had his hand raised like, hey, I'm open. And Grayson just didn't see him at all. You know, he completely missed him, found him way too late. And by the time he threw the ball, the defense had jumped the route and it was an incomplete pass. So I think along with the intangible difference, I think you feel really good about Dylan Lonergan heading into the season. Because I think, like you said, I think Lonergan would have completed that pass. And I think also, you know, along the offense with Turbo Richard, obviously, out with the hand injury, Jordan McDonald was taking a lot of the reps with the top guys. He had a touchdown near the goal line, and he was a big option in the short passing game, like on these checkdowns, on these screens. He didn't have a lot of big chunk plays, but he played his role pretty well. Alex Broom didn't play as big as a role as I wanted him to. I didn't see him a ton, but he was effective when he was out there. I kind of wish they utilized him more. Somebody else that kind of shone was Ty Lockwood. He's establishing himself as a very viable pass catch option in the tight end room. And you hear him talk at these press conferences, and he's very well spoken. He seems like a guy that just gets it. Obviously, is the Lonergan connection. So I'm looking to him to be a big kind of underrated piece of this offense. And then somebody that has continued to impress me is late addition and freshman running back Bo McCormick. I mean, he has not looked like somebody that has just exited high school when he's out there. I was initially surprised at the usage that he was getting in practice, but after watching him for a little bit, it's obvious why he's getting this kind of action. I mean, he's just confident in what he does. It's so apparent. He feels like he belongs out there. You wouldn't know he was a late addition if you saw him. And he just always picks up these big chunk plays. I think you called him like a bowling ball, and I would agree with that. Like, he just bounces off of guys, has a full repertoire of moves, and I think he's going to be somebody that's going to get utilized a lot. And as far as the defense goes, you know, I think these scrimmages, like I said, like, they're definitely very offensive heavy because they're not hitting as much as they should. Right. I mean, there are hits, but it's not full out 100%.
Right. I was going to say with the rushing attack too, it's hard to gauge what they're doing because usually it's like touch and they're done. Like you don't like, they let them kind of sometimes pull through, but like for a guy like Jordan McDonald, like it's a lot of, he barrels into a guy and then it's like blown dead. And so you don't get to see exactly what he can do. So that's kind of the same piece of what you're saying with the defense, where they get reamed if they hit too hard. You know, they're not supposed to, and they know it, so they can lay out. It's their teammates. They'll hit hard, but they don't, you know, if it's, you know, flagrant or things like that, they're not the staff makes sure that they're not doing that.
Right. No, precisely. And I think you got to kind of take what you can get out there, especially with, I will say Quintavious Hutchins, when he's running down the quarterback, he can keep up stride for stride pretty well. Like, he's a guy that's sneaky fast, and he even made Lonergan feel his presence in the backfield, forcing a few throwaways. And obviously great to see Amari Jackson out there playing lockdown coverage. A lot of times you don't even notice him because he's playing such good coverage out there. You know, KP Price, we talked about not really being able to hit, but there was a play where KP Price got into the backfield and blew up a running play with a crack that sent, you know, waves through Alumni Stadium. So that was cool to see. But yeah. Like you said, it's not full bout. You're not going to see a ton, but just those things specifically definitely stood out to me.
Do you have more? Because I'm going to have to cut you off because we have to get to a break here. But do you have more that you want to talk about with the scrimmage? Because I'm sure our listeners want to hear more.
No, I'm great with the scrimmage. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. Well, good. Awesome. In a moment, we're going to get Mike's take on a few names that has stood out that he really didn't even talk about in this first segment. We'll hear more about those two players in just a moment. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's the all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data, visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I got 2 kids at home. We're starting to think about college funds, and I am starting to put money aside. Monarch has made it easy for me to put my investments in one place so I can see how much I'm saving, whether I'm hitting my goals or not, and what adjustments I have to make for my family so that I have that college fund going for my 2. Now, don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. I juggle 2 phones all the time. I got my recruiting and work phone. I have my family phone. And I get, you know, I'm constantly getting text messages from coaches, text messages from my family. It's all going all over the place. It's hard for me to manage, but with OpenPhone, it makes it so easy. So you can see why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first month. 6 months, 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's OPENPHONE.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here with Mike Sidley. And if you're looking for a second listen on the Locked On Network, check out Locked On College Football. We are less than a week away from college football starting with Week 0 action. Kansas State and Iowa State, I got that game circled. I'm sure they're going to talk about it. Got to hear what Spencer McLaughlin says about that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Mike, you wanted to bring up, I'm asking you to bring up 2 players. We're going to talk about one on offense and one on defense. And I feel like I've brought up Jaden Skeet, but it's worth bringing him up again because of the type of camp he's had. You've seen him too. Tell me what you've seen from Jaden Skeet.
Sure. So, you know, these last few practices, he's really been incredible to watch, especially in the scrimmage on Saturday. Obviously, the highlight was put out of him making that ridiculous one-handed catch last week. And that's pretty much how things have been going for him, you know, highlight plays, highlight practices. And, you know, he hooked up on a few touchdowns yesterday, mainly in the red zone, and he caught a bunch of balls in the open field, like big yardage plays, 10+ yards. And he's somebody that just has a huge catch radius, right? He can catch balls that most receivers wouldn't, i.e. the ridiculous social media post that was put out. In his big frame, if you're in the end zone and there's single coverage on the outside, it should almost be a sure option that he's the one that's going to get the ball, because this guy can jump out the roof as well. And when you add him to a receiving core with Lewis Bond, Reed Harris, and potentially a few other guys in the mix, you have a very legit core that can make a bunch of plays for you. And Jaden's kind of been the odd man out at times with this group, and I don't think that's been the case lately at all.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when we're talking and we did previews and all that good stuff in the fall and the spring, you talk about Lewis and you're like, oh, and then there's Reed Harris, who seems like he's coming along. And yeah, Jaden Skeet, he played a little bit. But I really do want to emphasize how impressive he has been. Like, he looks like an NFL wide receiver out there. The way he's built, the way he, as you said, long arms, catching everything that's within his grasp, like, he's gonna have a big year. I think there's a lot to say about him. As long as he can stay healthy. Obviously, like, a freak injury happens last year and that knocks him out of the season, but you can't really gauge that kind of stuff. Here's a stat. Fun. Let's have a little discussion here. Do you think he'll end up with more receiving yards than Lewis Bond and Reed Harris?
I would
put you
say
on the spot
no.
here, Mike.
No, yeah, I would say no. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think, Lewis Bond is the older guy. I think he's just going to get deferred to mainly because of that. And I think Reed Harris he's almost like a Jaden Skeet type player as well. He's huge. I don't think his arms are as long as Jaden Skeet. I think you'll see Skeet use his hands more efficiently than Reed Harris. But Reed Harris is another guy that can jump through the roof. And I think what you're talking about is a very good problem to have. And I think This is something that all teams, hope to deal with. I don't think Jaden Skeet will have as many yards. Will he have more touchdowns? Maybe, only because he's such a factor in the red zone. I was seeing him in Sunday go up with a few DBs in the end zone, and they were just back-to-back plays are just throwing it up to this dude. And he's catching, 2 of the 3 balls that are thrown this way. Everybody in the building knows it's going to him, and he's coming down with it. So more yards, no. More catches, no. But touchdowns, maybe.
I got to say, I think, honestly, like, we've had Zay Flowers, and Zay's, if you're going to, like, gauge how a wide receiver room, it's hard to beat him. But I think in terms of depth and just talent, this wide receiver room has a lot to be excited about this year between Harris, Bond, and now Skeet. Like, there's a lot. As long as Reed Harris is ready to go, they're going to have a lot of guys that are good targets for. It's a perfect fit for Dylan Lonergan,
Right. Yeah. VJ Wilkins too. That's a guy that we haven't really seen yet either. So it's going to be exciting.
And I know you wrote about him too. Dawson Pugh had some good plays too. He, true freshman from Virginia. Now let's go to the other side. Let's look at defense. You wanted to talk. We've talked about safety. I've talked about Zaire Torrance a lot, but I really feel like I've neglected, and usually I hear it from the parents when I neglect a player, and I don't mean to. But this player deserves to be mentioned, and I write him up a lot because he does make plays. Tell me who you want to talk about.
Sure. So, somebody that I agree hasn't been given nearly as much attention as he should be in the secondary is Omar Thornton. This is somebody who played a decent amount last year and has been sort of flying under the radar of this very deep group amongst a lot of other stories that have come out in the secondary. This is a group that'll hopefully be one of the best in the ACC, and I think he's going to be a big part of that. And he had 2 big plays in the scrimmage that really stood out to me. One of those plays came when he shot up the middle of the offensive line and completely smacked Jordan McDonald in the backfield. I mean, you want to talk about a hit that's going to get the coaches angry. This would be a hit that would get the coaches angry, because this was another crack, and Jordan McDonald's a big dude, and he kind of snapped back at that. And another play that caught my eye was when he was with Lewis Bond in coverage, and then they both dove for a ball. Thornton reached over the back of Bond mid-dive and smacked the ball over his shoulder with a swat. So, when you have somebody that can be effective in the run game and the pass game in the secondary, I think he's somebody that's going to turn a lot of heads, and I think he's going to be a glue guy amongst this group that might fly under the radar, but you'd much rather have him than not.
I look at having Thornton and Price and thinking to myself, this is going to be a very physical pair of safeties that they have. KP can be pretty hard hitting. Omar, it's been like the theme of camp. Like, I'm sure Jordan McDonald is getting tired of getting hit by him because I've seen him hit him too. So like that's kind of been his thing. Like, and he's the free safety out there. Like, I feel like I don't want to say Legion of Boom, like Seattle, but you've got probably one of your more talented pairings back there, and that's not even without Carter Davis out there. Carter Davis is very good too, and he's a different style. He's a ball hawk. So like you've got a lot of talent there in that secondary. So yeah, I think those are two really good examples of where BC's secondary is going. Any other thoughts before we get to our final discussion?
No, I think I'm ready. I got some predictions for you.
Oh, let's get to predictions in just a moment. I want to hear what Mike has to predict for this upcoming season. Let's get to it. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up and college football isn't far behind. Whether you've got your eye on big name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. I'm most excited. I'm a homer. I'm from Boston. Drake May. I'm excited to see what Prize Picks is going to have set up for him for some of these games because I'm shooting over. The way that he's been working with Kyle Williams and some of those tight ends, I love what he's going to be able to do. And I can see him hitting the over on some of the picks they make. Because Prize Picks is so easy to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. The flex play option is a total game changer too. Even when one of your picks misses, you can still double your money. So download the Prize Pick app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Pick. Run your game. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks in, this is your moment. So, I'm thinking flyer on who the MVP this year is going to be. I'm looking at Saquon Barkley. I want to get the odds on Saquon Barkley to potentially be MVP this year. Big year ahead of him. Maybe he's going to do it. Now, you can go to FanDuel. You can get that on August 26th. You can also get, your champion. Do you think the Bills are going to finally break through, or maybe the Patriots are going to, go from the worst to the best? I don't know. You can get all that on FanDuel too. And all you got to do is visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because FanDuel's Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Wrapping things up here at Locked On Boston College, here with Mike Sidley, who writer for Eagle Insider, and we're talking about the upcoming season. We talked about camp, some players that have stood out. Mike wants to give some predictions. So, Mike, let's shoot from the hip. What do you got?
All right, I got one for you. One of my big predictions is that I believe Turbo Richard will have at least 900 yards rushing this season. I didn't say 1,000's a lot in college football. We'll stick with 900. But I think if this guy stays healthy, I think he could really be one of the premier backs in the ACC. And people say, there's a lot of questions on the offensive line. Turbo's never been a feature back before, but I believed a very balanced attack to this offense this year is going to get him a lot of big yardage games. I think if teams are playing on their heels and they realize, okay, we got to be ready for all possibilities of attack, that's going to open up the run game more. Turbo's shown that he can run. He averaged a lot of yards per carry. I believe it was over 5 last year. He's just somebody that can get it done, even in small dosages. So I think if you give him more of a feature position, hopefully running the ball over, 170, 180, heck, maybe even hopefully 200 times, I think he's somebody that can get a lot of 85-yard plus games for you. And I think you could see a lot of 100-yard games as well on the horizon.
So all our everydayers out there, we had Mitch Wolf on last week. He gave his predictions. I want you, because I'm too busy for this, to write down Mitch's predictions, Mike's predictions, and my predictions. Tell us which one of us is the biggest idiot at the end of the season, because I'm really curious. It's going to be me. I know it's going to be me. But Mike, what's your second one? So if you do that, email me. I'll make sure that I give you a shout out if you chart out all of our predictions, because I want to know it.
Love it. We'll put some money down. Perfect.
All right. So what's your next one?
Yeah, much more of a safer sort of prediction here. I think that this secondary will have even more interceptions than they did last year and lead the ACC. You know, this group, we've talked about it ad nauseum, but it's not nauseum to me because that's just how exciting they are, and we get to see them every time we go out there. And just to look at this group as an entirety, the amount of quality guys that they have returning, as well as, emerging guys that didn't play last year, and guys in here as freshmen where you're just like, these are freshmen. Like, I can't believe they're as polished as they are at a young age. I think you're going to see a lot of guys, compete with each other to get picks. I think that this secondary is kind of like a spider web to me. And like, if you're a quarterback that dares to throw in it, the ball might get stuck. That ball might get picked off and taken the other way. So I think that this is going to be a group where, offenses aren't going to want to test this secondary. They're itching for another crack to get more interceptions than they did last year. They're a hungry group. They're underrated. They don't feel like they're getting the recognition that they need. And I would want to be an OC having BC, in the having to go against them in the near future, having them on my schedule next.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the young guys like Marcellus Townsend and Ashton Cunningham. Seen a bunch of them. TJ Green at camp. These are younger guys that will be probably on the 2 deep. You're gonna see these guys at some point. And they, as you said, they're looking more and more polished as they go along this camp and look like they're going to be ready to get out there. So you got the top end talents, but you get the young guys too. Do you have any other predictions for us, Mike?
Dylan Lonergan over 3,000 yards.
Woo! Going deep. I love it. All right, so we're expecting a big year. That's a big year. All right, tell me why.
The receiving group, and he's ready. If things line up how they do, and if the gods allow, and if it just happens, because it'd be really sick to see a bunch of balls thrown more than 30 plus yards down the field for the first time in a while. I think it's exciting. Hey, if we're going to be throwing a few picks along the way, that's okay, because we're going to be pushing down the ball down the field. We're going to be scoring a lot of points, and I'm ready for it.
I'm looking forward to this too. I think the offense is going to be better than expected. I think the offensive line is. I think a lot of folks are gnashing their teeth about this. I think when you go back to 2022, that was the year that Dave DeGuglielmo was here, and they had they're breaking in Drew Kendall and Ozzie Trapillo. Mm-hmm. It's a very different situation right now. That year was full of freshmen getting their first starts. Even if they go with Michael Kraunz as the starting center, he's shown that he should do it. Everyone else is all upperclassmen, right? You got Jude Bowery, Logan Taylor, Kevin Klein, even Eric Dougherty's played a little bit. Like, I think this is going to, as long as they're sufficient, their offense is going to be pretty good. Any last ones, Mike?
That's all I got for you, AJ.
Awesome.
3 big ones. We'll leave it at that.
Awesome. So, Mike, where can people find you?
You can find me over at Eagle Insider. I've done some player interviews, some recaps. I'm going to be doing basketball coming up here in the winter. Yep. So, yeah, check out the recaps for the scrimmage in written format. Check up the recap from Sunday's practice. And, yeah, got a great slate heading up here towards the football season, and really excited for it.
Yeah, me too. I just can't wait. And Mike does an excellent job, so make sure you check out his work. I can't say enough good things, and it's great to have you on today, Mike. And we're only a few days away from the start of regular. Like, this is the last week.
Yeah.
I think I don't think they're going to be doing any more scrimmages. I think this is it. And then it's on to Fordham starting this weekend. So it's flying in. Now you can follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. I'll be at practice on Tuesday and Wednesday this week. We'll have coverage on that. I think I have Bill tomorrow. And we'll talk about whatever's going on there. I'll give you all the updates there. On tomorrow's show, I'll recap what happened at practice, any big takeaways that's going on, anything new. Including, I want to make sure I talk about this, the Big Ten's proposed 28-team postseason, which would include 5 ACC tournament spots. I'll tell you why, as a BC person, kind of want it to happen, just because it's the only way BC's ever going to get there. But I'm not gonna bury that lead right now. So you follow me on Twitter at AJBlackT47. You can be on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok. I'm on TikTok. Yes, I do videos on TikTok. It's where all the kids are at, and I want to make sure that every BC fan can find me. So check that out there as well. And so thank you all for following along, and I'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.